Let's go to Carter from Bitsby Tripping. Your thoughts on crypto scams? Is it inherent? Is it part of new technology, or is it like Ben said, the people just want to get rich quick?
Yeah, I mean, I think good money is always going to bring bad malicious actors. I think anything in general brings malicious actors and people trying to, get one thing over somebody else. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a MMO and somebody trying to steal your hard-earned, WoW gold to crypto, right? It's the same kind of basic concept where somebody's trying to take from you. I think a lot of it comes down to education. The unfortunate thing with crypto is it's complicated enough that people will spend a certain amount of time on it, and they take chances on the wisdom of the crowd type of thing, and that's why we see stuff like Safe Moon and some of these other obvious rug pull. The Shiba crowd, people think critical mass will then run it up, and then somebody's going to be left with the bag, right? And you have these natural order effects occurring that are just kind of replicants of our society and the way we tribe together certain things. But trying to understand the fundamentals of a project and what gives it some value proposition. Quite frankly, a lot of people don't. There was a point in time where I think people cared about it. It seems now that it's all about, because you have this like critical mass that puts a little bit of time into crypto, they gravitate. I mean, just look at the community sizes, unlike the SHIB folks, and Dogecoin has a check mark and Bitcoin doesn't, right? I mean, like, I still understand why Jack hasn't given Bitcoin a verified account, but like, I think it comes down ultimately down into education across from everybody to understand, like, here's the things and here's what they're trying to do. And here's the risk you enter in this. It's like doing business, like we were talking about earlier with China. Like if you're hosting in China or you paid some kind of colo, I've heard a lot of people that had some kind of colo deal with China and now it's shut down and they're not going to get their money back. It was kind of what you entered in. And so it's kind of like a disclaimer coming out with some of the folks with some of these obvious, there's obvious scams, and then there's ones that look like they have at least a community behind them, but there's no real point to them. Of just educating what's the difference there and where do you ultimately want to, have your money setting in. And, there's a lot of friends I've known that like they've been around me, they've seen the mining. I mean, and mind you, I was doing this stuff. I was talking on Bitcoin Talk in 2011, late 2010s when I created my account there. And like they've been around it since the beginning practically. And some of them took a position, some of them were out in 2017. But I still get the same actors, the same friends that have been around me of all people, like that do this every day. And they're still like, hey man, what do you think about Safe Moon? I'm like, bro, like seriously, like, have you not been listening for 7 years? What I'm trying to tell you here. But what it comes down to is like, people go to chase that the quickest dollar. I don't know if we're ever going to change people from that. It's just more enablement from some of these services and people building, like Lightning and some of these other ancillary tools that get them to, make Bitcoin sexy, make it easier to use and access, and give it a value proposition that, pushes people to stay to some of those projects. But it makes it hard when you have stuff like Ethereum with airdrops, Uniswap doing airdrops, like this free money. Like I have an account, I get money that happens to be worth money. Getting, these exclusive groups that try to get, pump and dump and all the, it's just, there's so many scams out there and so many ways for people to take your money from it. And it's that kind of quick order effect, like, the generations that are really interacting with this. When you look at like the demographics, it's like, it's our generation and younger that have had that click loot kind of mindset from gaming and stuff. And I want the quick instant gratification. It really preys on that, and that kind of ideology that maybe I'm taking this huge risk, but if I can get, a 10x Robin Hood kind of style event, it's just going to continue to occur. But I don't think you break that in any way besides better tooling, education, better interfaces, and just and us having conversations like this, and hopefully people find it and it's interesting to them. And sometimes they find it after the fact, right? They're like, man, I got rugged, and this will be the metadata inside this video. And they'll be like, us talking about it, man, I wish we could reach these people. And they're like, yeah, I got rugged. now I understand, and sometimes you got to get burned to start to have a more appreciation to understanding, and hopefully just don't get burned too hard. That's what it comes down to.
Although I do agree with you, I do think we need to make Bitcoin sexy. I'm reminded of the old joke about the stand-up comedian where he does all this work and he becomes a perfect stand-up. And like Bitcoin does all this work, becomes independent, cypherpunk, crypto, money, all this stuff. And they're like, yeah, but can you act? Moving on. We still got a chance. You guys can push the thumbs up button. We got about 47 people watching us live. Even if you're watching later, you can push the thumbs up button. That's how YouTube can tell good videos from bad ones. So just thumbs up all the good videos. Moving on to the exit question. This is a tough one. We're going to Dan first. Is it the responsibility of Bitcoiners to protect and warn people about these scams?
Well, I don't think it's the responsibility, but the good thing is about the Bitcoin community is that it's a community where people look out for each other, and although everyone rips on some of the funny like Shiba scams and all that, we ultimately we do realize that it's bad when people get scammed, and we don't want people getting scammed in Bitcoin because it can, Bitcoin investment scams are almost as rife as other shitcoin scams. So I like the fact that the Bitcoin kind of community cares for itself. It doesn't have to, and people don't have to, and they're not obligated to. But a lot of people are really kind-natured, and they do try and deter people from investing in scams and making them, be a bit more vigilant.
And Ark, are you your brother's keeper, or is it enter at your own risk?
I think it's a yes, no, maybe. It reminds me that one of my favorite cities in the world is a place called Bern in Switzerland. And in Bern in Switzerland, you can Google it. There's this crazy river, which is like an alpine river, and it runs through the whole city at a phenomenal rate. And it's very shallow. And you look at it, and it's got all these swirling currents. It's the sort of river you were told never to go near as a child. Well, in Bern in Switzerland, the crazy Swiss, they jump in that river and they use it as a form of transport. If you want to get into town, you put all your stuff in like a waterproof bag, you jump in the river, you just float really fast along this river, and then you grab onto these bars coming off the side of the river, which you grab onto, and then you pull yourself out. And honestly, they're insane. I saw a pregnant woman with a dog grabbing onto one of these bars and pulling herself out of this crazy river. And I think in the UK that would be illegal. Like, you wouldn't be allowed to jump in that river, but then people would, and they would hurt themselves. When you walk along the path running alongside this river, there's just loads of really nice public information. So it's like, be careful of logs floating on the river. When you jump in, it's shallow, so make sure you start kicking straight away. There's all this great just information so people are going to jump in the river, but just do it safely. And then when you actually stood on one of these bridges about to leap into the river, the local Swiss people would be like, oh, make sure you do it this way, make sure you do it that way. So you have guidance just from the town which they've put up, and then you've also just got guidance from the locals who also. So I think that's where we are. Like, we should give people good information and say to them, look, if you're going to do this, just don't put too much of your portfolio in there, and don't go for something which is too scammy, and don't smoke the hopium and think you're going to make gazillions overnight. Take your time, blah blah blah. But then also, I think it is up to the role of society at large and governments to sort of recognize this new asset class, which is very easy to onboard onto, and just say, look, there are these risks attached to it. If you're going to do it, you can do it. It's fine. But just understand that there's these risk attacks attached to them. And some, you really need to look into the fundamentals of a project and how it works, blah, blah, blah. So just education from general society, governments, whatever, but then also just with each other, we can help each other. So I always think of that crazy, Google it, it's insane. They're nuts. By the way, if you're ever in Bern in Switzerland, there's an amazing Bitcoin meetup. That's where Grugol, who works for LND, is from, and did all the macaroon stuff. And they're nuts, but it's a great city.